Hi, Chris. Thank you for joining me on the podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks. Yeah, really good.
It's a pleasure to have you on. Part of an influential British band, so it means a lot to speak to
Pleasure to be here. Talk away.
you. So, this year released a single called Hometown. How did that song
Yeah,
come about?
it came about because we've just received the Citizen of Honour in our home city of Liverpool, and the Lord Mayor was putting on a big function, so that we could be given our award and things. And I thought it would be nice to write a song to commemorate the occasion. And it's something that I've always wanted to do was to write just a song about Liverpool, where we're from, but with not the heavy side of, the toxic thing and things like that. Just the city itself and where we're from and the memories that I still get even now when I walk around there. And as a result of that, that's how the song Hometown came about. Um, yeah, and as I say, it's something that I've always wanted to do.
I can see familiar faces walking down familiar streets. I can see familiar places where my friends and I would meet. We would talk about the future and what we were gonna be. Some have been and gone, and my life's moved on, but the city's still in me. It's my hometown. It's my childhood playground. Liverpool is who I am, where I grew into a man.
What was it like getting that Liverpool Citizens of Honour?
Fantastic. It was one of the best days of our lives, really. I mean, it's lovely to have that accolade coming from your home city, you know. Um, and like I said, we're really proud of where we come from, and we're proud of being awarded that, honor.
You're also re-releasing your Christmas song, Christmas Time. How come you're re-releasing it?
Yeah, well, you see, I've always wanted to write a Christmas song, but when Ed was alive, my brother Eddie, he always thought it was a bit corny doing Christmas songs and things. So, you know, we never really got round to it. But it's something that I've always wanted to do. Um, a nice, light, easy going, just something nice, Um, so I wrote Christmas Time, and it was a little bit late, really, for last year when I sort of presented it. It was a bit late. All the sort of like the playlists and everything had finished, and so we always said that, well, it's no problem. Christmas songs are no problem. We can sort of re-release it this year, and that's why we're re-releasing it this year. To give it plenty of opportunity, to get played and things like that. I think it's a really, really happy Christmas song without being ridiculous.
The one occasion, that wonderful time of year, where we can all get together and celebrate. Christmas time is here, 'cause it's Christmas time, a time of joy around the world. I wish every man, woman, boy or girl happy Christmas, happy Christmas, happy Christmas, happy Christmas. Have a wonderful day.
How did that song come about then, originally?
Christmas time.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, well, like I say, I've always wanted to do a Christmas song. And you sort of like, well, I remember I was walking my dogs actually, and this little ditty just kept coming in my head, and I thought, all right, okay, and just developed it. And to be honest with you, it came quite simply because it was a pleasure. You haven't got to think about things like that. There's nothing heavy, there's nothing, it's just you want to sort of give people a nice feeling. And if it gives me a nice feeling, I would think it would give a lot of people a nice feeling, and that's what it does, you know.
Is it harder or easier to write a Christmas song?
It depends, you know. Some songs, like probably the song that we're most proud of is Children of the Ghetto. But that was quite an easy song to write. And then you'll take something like Can You Feel the Force? And that was hard to write. I always think it's more difficult to write a song that you need to appeal to the masses rather than yourself. Because when it comes down to it, it's the masses that say whether it's a great song or whether it isn't. Because they're the ones who you want to like it. And if they don't like it, it means, well, the song's not getting across. And if it's not getting across, it might as well just sit on the shelf, you know? And I like to think that Christmas time is something that will get across to people if it's heard.
Well, it's been a up and down journey for the band from the start to now. When did you first take an interest in music?
I first took an interest in music probably when I was about 13. Um, Obviously, I was influenced because my brother Eddie used to be in a group called The Chants, and they made a career out of it. And I just thought, well, I'd love to have a career in show business. We weren't thinking about records or anything like that, just a career of being on stage performing. And so that's when we actually started to get in our front room and sing along with all our favorite records from like the OJs, the Temptations, all them type of bands, you know, that were around at the time. And then these bands started appearing on television. And, you know, when you see a band that looks like you and you think, oh, Christ, well, I can do that, you know. And that's when we started taking it a little bit more seriously. And you get to a point where you can harmonize and you think, yeah, okay. Start to do little talent competitions and things like that. And just developed, you know.
Well, soul and funk was mainly a genre happening in America. So when you
Yeah,
were touring the UK, how was it received at the time when you first started out?
we were received quite well because we were only young and raw. And as you know, the public will always accept something that's young and raw, always. You don't have to be great because people don't expect you to be. As long as you give them a good night and you can have a good dance and things, that's what they care about, you know. But I find that once you started taking it seriously, then you were up against them bands then because, you know, all these guys could sing. And in them days, there was no such thing as being put together. There was no such thing, you know. If you couldn't sing, you didn't get a deal. That was all there was to it. You know, a record company may come out and see you, and if you couldn't sing, that was it. End of story. You know, because you were up against your Stevie Wonders, your OJs, all them type of bands. So being a black band, if we couldn't sing, we were no use because the people who were writing the songs at the time, they wanted artists that could sing their songs properly. You know, so it wasn't a case of getting put together as a band. It was a case of you got to be right when these people come out and see you. You know,
Well, we mentioned your honour, your Liverpool, you've got your Liverpool Citizens honour. How influential was Liverpool on your career and your music?
well, Liverpool's everything to us because Liverpool, like I say, in hometown, is where you grow up from being a kid into a man, and so that's what sort of shapes you, your whole surroundings, um, the atmosphere that you're brought up in. That's what shapes you, you know. And as you know, Liverpool are very, very, as are a lot of, you know, inner cities and things like that. They're very, very famous for things like boxers, like John Conte was a world champion. Music, like the Beatles, Frankie Goes Up, Hollywood, all them bands. And, you know, and football, of course. I mean, I can't forget the football. So it's always been a sort of city that inspires especially people who haven't got much. It's a way of having a living that can give you a lot as well. And that's what Liverpool does, you know. It's that type of city.
Yeah, well, a high point from your career was being the first all black band to get a number one with You to Me Are Everything. Can you remember
Mhm.
when it went to number one?
I do. I remember the exact day. I remember exactly how I felt, which was like nothing I've ever felt before in my life. And that was when we actually thought, okay, we've now got a life doing what we want to do. If we're careful, if we keep our feet on the ground and we don't get silly, even if we never have another one, you've got a career now. And that's all we wanted to do, you know, when we were 14, we just wanted to have a career. Now, you can, success is sort of like judged on many levels. For me, success is if you set out to do something and you achieve that, that's success. Below the fact that you might not sell a record, if when me and Dave set out, we just wanted to have a career on the stage, singing to people and making enough money to live on it, to support our families on it. And that's what we wanted. Now, if we'd have never have had a hit, but we'd achieved that, that's success.
Yeah.
That's success. Now, you can go to another level and be more successful if you have hit records. But you've got to realize that 90% of the people that start out in this business do not have hit records. They don't have them.
No, no.
When you think of the amount of people that set out in show business, how many actually have hit records? Not many, when you consider the amount of people. So I feel very fortunate, you know, that we were one of the few that have had hit records.
Does it make it more worthwhile as well that the song's still relevant today? Like if you go to a party or something, you're still going to hear that song today.
I'm amazed. I'm amazed. When we did the song, it was just a song. Just a song that we recorded that we thought that stands a chance of being selling a lot of records. Huh? Sounds great. You know, sounds like, you know, Johnny Bristol, one of them type of bands. But to think it's still going to be, to think it's going to become a classic, you never dream of that. And you don't really know about that until I'm sitting here now. Because you can't say, because it gets to number one, it's a classic, because it isn't. Because there must be thousands of number ones I can't even remember. You know, just don't even remember them, you know, especially if they're not in the genre that I like. But everybody, no matter what genre you're into, will know You to Me Are Everything as soon as it starts playing. And that is what you call a classic song, a classic record. And like I say, we're really fortunate that I think we've had three, because we've had You to Me, which was a hit twice. Can you Feel the Force, which was a hit twice, and Can't Get By Without You, which was a huge hit twice. So, you know, we've been very fortunate. Them two songs are in the most popular songs ever, You to Me and Can't Get By Without You. And to have two in the top 100 songs of all time is quite amazing.
It's crazy as well because them two were back to back as well, weren't they?
Back to back. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, back to back. Couldn't believe it. It was a real golden time, you know.
Would you say that was the peak of the band? Like your favourite time in the band?
Actually, no. Because we were so young and sort of it was a case of just enjoying it then. And then, you know, you go through a period, you know, we had Feel the Force and Raining Through My Sunshine, Whenever You Got My Love, all them, which were, you know, quite good hits as well. And then things died down, but then comes 86 and they all start happening again, but they all happen in the same year. Like You to Me, Can't Get By, and Force, and the album all came back in the same year. So that made it even bigger. It wasn't spread out, it was all in the same year, you know. So I would say that that was probably the best period because we could appreciate it more then. We
Yeah.
knew what we had then, you know.
Yeah, like you didn't take it for granted kind of thing.
Didn't take it for granted. Absolutely.
Well, with like having those 3 hits in a year and the album and stuff, did it feel like everything sort of changed overnight?
Everything had come back to where it was, only more. Because by that time they had more of an idea how to market the band. And you could do a lot more with that success than what we could earlier on. Because like I say, we were the first when it first came out in 76 and things. They didn't really know how to market us because they hadn't had that before over here, one of their own, emulating the American soul bands, you know. So the American soul bands always had pride of place. But by the time we came back again in 86, there were other bands coming up, you know, Imagination and all them type of bands were all starting to come out. So there was much more of a platform. And I think that English bands were then appreciated more because the path had been set.
Well, we mentioned you were the first all-black band to get a UK #1. As an all-black band at that time, did it put barriers up at points in your career?
Yeah, there was always barriers up because we weren't American.
Yeah.
Right? That was the biggest barrier. Because as far as they were concerned, it was like, can't be as good. They're not American. But for, you know, another thing, everybody used to think we were American. So that's another thing that we had to sort of dispel, get rid of that notion. And we found that with the radio and the TV and things, the Americans always had the #1 slot. So if they had to pick between two, it would be the American band that would get the TV slot, not us. Right? So if the OJs had a single out at the same week as Real Thing, you'd find that the OJs would be the ones that would get played more than the Real Thing. But slowly but surely we changed that round.
Yeah. Do you think as well you knocked a lot of barriers down for future black acts in the UK?
Well, I think we certainly set the ball going, you know, because like I say, before us, they didn't know where to market a band like us. By the time we'd sort of like been there and done it, there were other bands who'd look at us and go, oh, we can do that. So they were starting off and they were coming out and they were having a little bit of success as well. And so the whole thing was opening up till in the end, when it comes the 80s, a movement started to happen, mainly in London, where a lot of the sort of like the Brit funk bands were coming out, which I always found was more of a copy of the American bands, which is the one thing where I think a lot of them went wrong. Because we always went out of our way not to be American. We always went out of our way. Our manager, who was one of the most respected people in America and black jazz music at the time, and also over here, always instilled on us, be yourselves, come up with your own sound. Don't try and copy the Americans because you're not as good as them. That's their music. They've been doing that since they were 3 years old in the gospel churches. That music, that's their music. So what you got to do is come up with your own variation of that music, which makes it English. And that's why we started to write things like Children of the Ghetto and things like that, because that was us. That was Toxteth, not Harlem.
Yeah.
You know?
What was it like?
None of them were doing that. They were like sort of playing like a jazz funk thing that came out of London. But they were like sort of more like Donald Byrd and all them, the American sort of jazz artists and things. And so they were up against them. But we had our own thing. Like Feel the Force, you can't compare that with anything really. I mean, it's a great disco record. It was #1 for God knows how many months. But you can't compare it with anybody. You can't say, "Oh, that sounds like."
Yeah.
It just doesn't. It's got flavour to it with all the brass and everything, but you can't say it's. Oh, that sounds like, because it doesn't sound like anything. It sounds us. It's a real thing.
What was so you've got your own sound then that you've that when you take it over to America, what was their like reception of it?
Their reception was fantastic, but they wanted to put their flavour into it, and
Yeah.
that's where we were very, very wrong. They went very, very wrong. And the only time we've actually recorded in America, because what they tried to do was, see, in America, things happen that you don't know, right? For instance, you look at a lot of these groups like the Supremes and all of them, and I'm not saying them specifically, but a lot of them didn't sing. It was only the lead singer mainly that sung on the records, and it was that one singer who probably do all the harmonies as well, right?
Yeah.
And that's how the Americans weren't bothered. So long as they got the best out of that piece of plastic, they weren't bothered how they went about it, right? So when we went over, me and Eddie went over to prep it and everything. We were doing all our songs, and the guys who were doing it was Tume and Lucas, who used to be with Miles Davis, and Roberta Flack and all that. So they were huge, you know. And in the end, they wouldn't allow Dave and Ray to come out. He says, "No, we want Chris to do all the vocals. Chris can do all the vocals." He says, "Why bring them all out when he can do all the vocals?" So, all right, we couldn't argue. They were producers, so we did the vocals. But then they added a load of female voices on top of the voices, so that it give it great sound, but different. It wasn't real thing sound.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that was our experience of America. I didn't like it. I didn't like it. You know, I didn't like how they went about things. Even though I know that they knew what they were doing, I didn't particularly like it. But they got a great sound out of me. They certainly knew how to record my voice. It was great, you know. And I loved the way they recorded it, but I didn't like that. I didn't like the way they put things together. Probably because I'm not used to that. You know, we were used to the four of us going into the studio and putting our vocals down, then I'd put the lead down, and that'd be it. You know.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you wanted to stay true to yourselves as well.
We wanted to keep our sound.
Yeah, yeah.
Putting girls on. It's not your sound. It's completely different.
Yeah, definitely. Well, with the debut album, it was more of an uplifting, upbeat, light album, and then with the second album, it was completely different. 4 from 8.
Yeah.
What was it like? Going down a different route with the second album?
We were tremendously proud, but in hindsight, it was wrong.
Do you think it was? You were a bit before your time as well with the topics and stuff.
Absolutely, totally before our time. Totally. Nobody over here was writing songs like that. Nobody.
No. You mentioned before, like they knew how to market you and stuff. Was it harder to market that album after what you'd done previously?
It must have been harder, but that was a side of the business that we didn't really get to know about. Our manager used to do that. I mean, we knew it wasn't as easy as the first album. You know, we only took, what did we take from that? We took Whenever You Want My Love, which was a hit from it. And I think that was it, really. But, you know, we took something else from it, that album, Longevity. Because that's the album that stood the test of time. The 4 from 8 album is the album that has stood the test of time. That's still getting played now on a lot of stations that wouldn't play it before. Like a lot of the heavier stations now, they think that Children of the Ghetto and Stanhope Street and Liverpool 8, it was way before its time.
Yeah, yeah. Where would you say it kind of came into its time? Then would you say when like Mary J. Blige covered it and stuff? That's when it started to get the recognition.
Yeah, the first one to record it was Courtney Pine.
Yeah.
He's a jazz saxophonist in London, and his was unbelievable. He did our original version. He copied our original version of the 4 from 8 album, which was more jazzy. Then me and Eddie went in and we redid it. And I was doing a single for Phil Collins at the time, and he was producing Philip Bailey. And we'd sent our new version to Phil Collins, and he was just playing it in his car. Philip Bailey heard it, and he says, "Oh God, that's lovely. I'd love to do that." And so he actually recorded it, but that was a different version, and that's the version that he recorded, and that's the version that Mary J. Blige covered. And I can't tell you the amount of people that have covered that song in both variations, in the jazz one and in the lighter one, in the Philip Bailey, Mary J. Blige one. The other day we were traveling to a gig and we were talking about this very thing, and we just put Children Get Up on YouTube, and I heard 3 different versions of it from American jazz artists. I can't tell you the amount of rap artists that have used it, used this part of it and everything, And and another one that was taken from the same album was we did a track called Love Such a Wonderful Thing, which was top 40 for us. And then Daft Punk did a version called So Much Love to Give, which they took the main line from The Who. And they did it. And then that became a top 10 for The Real Thing again. And that was just using the line with our voices and things. So that album, even though it didn't happen then, it certainly brought us into where we are now.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, the whole thing of everything was all based around Children of the Ghetto. It wouldn't have come up. That film would not have come up had we not recorded things like Children of the Ghetto.
It's crazy that, really, isn't it?
Mm.
How at the time it's like kind of pushed to one side, but then as time goes on, it
Absolutely
recognition. Yeah,
absolutely.
it's like what you were saying about the number one as well. Over time, it might not be a classic, but you never know, do you?
You never know. You never know. In this business, you never know. Nobody can predict a hit. Nobody.
Do you still like when you hear a song then not know if it's going to be a hit or not after all these years?
No. The main thing I go by is I like it, and if I'm proud of it, well then I will be proud for people to hear it, and then they make up their own minds.
Yeah, yeah, because once it's in the public, it's something else, then, isn't it?
It's out of your hands.
Yeah, yeah. What about that revival in the mid-80s then when the old songs were coming back into the charts and stuff? How did that feel?
We were going round, gigging, things like that. Somebody had an idea that they wanted to remix You to Me. They remixed it. The company liked it, released it. It was a hit all over again. Same with the other 2 records.
Do you think you were more appreciated in the mid-80s than the 70s?
I wouldn't say more appreciated, no. I'd say we were equally as strong. We've always been very popular with the masses in this country. Don't know why, but they've always taken to us. I think it's because we were so different. The way we dressed was different. We stopped all the suits and the lame thing and everything way before all the other bands started doing it. So I suppose we were always a bit weird the way we dressed and things. But we were us. We didn't dress like anybody else. When they were all wearing the lame suits and that, we were way away from all that. We weren't doing dance routines or anything like that. It was.
Well, we mentioned you had your own sound. Was it important to have your own style as well then?
Very important, I think. Never copy the Americans in style because the style was crap. especially and just dress. We used to dress the way in things that we would wear if we were out. We did go through a glam stage where we had it was obviously 70s gear, but it was very different. It was very different, and most of the stuff that we wore, we would wear outside.
Yeah. Well, you like you say, you're still going today, you and Dave. You've got a tour that goes from from now to November next
From
year.
now to eternity, our tours last. Yeah.
What are the live shows like? Are you still enjoying playing live and stuff?
Amazing. We did the Albert Hall early in the year. We did the Palladium. We did our home city 2 weeks ago, Philharmonic Hall. It did amazing. And, you'd be very surprised if you come to see the band. Let's just put it that way.
Are you seeing different generations in the crowd as well then?
Yes. Yeah, we do. And that's why we have to be very, very careful, because when we work live, you have a sort of tendency to want to be completely up to date with a lot of what you do. You can't do that, because what you're actually doing then is you're leaving some of your fans behind, that they're there to see you do a certain type of thing. So you have to balance it. Everyone likes their bands, I think, doing things that are new, provided they're not ridiculously away from what you're known for.
Yeah.
Now they know that they're going to get things like Children of the Ghetto because they know us. And they've learned to appreciate that as well. So we can do very involved songs as well. As, we mix it with our hits, and they can sing along, and then they can sit down and listen to something like a Children of the Ghetto. Then we can get them up dancing again. And, just a nice evening.
Yeah, like a bit of a journey throughout the set list.
Yeah.
With the Christmas song being, when is it re-released?
Christmas time.
Yeah.
It's released now. It was released on the 4th of November.
So where can people listen to it and buy it and everything?
Right, you can buy it on all the platforms: Amazon, YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, everything. All them, Apple. You can buy it on all them things. And basically, if you want to see a nice video of it, just follow us on Facebook. And you can see we put a lot of videos on Facebook that you wouldn't normally see from our live stage show.
All right.
And so there's a lot on our page if you want to follow. There's quite a lot on there.
Nice. And just to finish off, looking back over your career, what moments are you proudest of and favourite moments, and how do you want the band to be remembered when it's all done?
Well, the proudest moment was when we got our first hit was with You to Me, because that was what gave us our life, right? And then getting that Citizen of Honour from our home city, that is tremendous honour as well. And we just want to be remembered as, like what you remember us as, a band that sort of blazed the way when things were difficult. And basically we didn't stray from our ideals.
Yeah.
We could have had a lot more hits. If we'd have just wanted to carry on doing You to Me, Can't Get By with every record, we could have had a lot more hits, big hits. But, the first thing we did after You to Me and Can't Get By was put out a ballad that we'd written, because we wanted to break it up a bit, And people can say that's right, or people can say that's wrong, but that's the way we felt at the time, and we're still here, aren't we?
Well, I was going to say that after the 2 hits, yeah, you wrote your own song. You didn't go back to the writing partnership that had wrote the previous 2.
We did. Eventually, we went and we did another hit with them called Whenever You Want My Love. They also produced our songs like Can You Feel the Force, Raining Through My Sunshine, things like that. So, we had all our success together with that.
Yeah. Well, Chris, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. It's been great to speak to you and hear all the stories and history of the band.
It's been a pleasure. Make sure you send it to me.
I will do, yeah, thank you. Yeah, cheers.
You take it easy.
You two, see you in a bit.
See ya.
Bye, bye, bye.